Welcome to C2 Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast, where CEOs and entrepreneurs share how they are overcoming business growth and sustainability challenges.
Welcome. I am your host, John Hale III, and we are honored today to have Eric Broyles as our guest. Eric is a serial entrepreneur who has founded and sold several companies. Currently, Eric is the founder and CEO of Nanocann Therapeutics Corporation and chairman of the board and co-founder of Reversal Therapeutics. Welcome to the program today, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yes, we're glad you're here with us today. Real excited, and so we'll just jump right into it. Eric, we just want to get a sense of how you're showing up today. We see you as a successful CEO. You've bought and sold several companies throughout your business career. Can you share with us an important aspect of your early career or childhood that has really led to the CEO who we see today?
Sure. I would say that growing up in a sort of working class neighborhood in Southwest Ohio and being observant of really, I'll say, very good community, but also one that was economically deprived, and
Okay.
being cognizant of how that played out in people's lives in our community. It's just something that I don't know why it struck me the way that it did, but it did as a very young person, seeing inequities in certain ways. Obviously, there's social inequities, things like that, but there's also economic inequities. And I think I was always bothered by that. And so I just committed myself as a young person to get as much education as possible, to work as hard as possible, and to try to build something of value one day in my life. And so I would say it started really in my community and being observant of what's going on in the community.
Gotcha. And you're a lawyer by training. Can you kind of give us a sense of what led you to law school and how you're using those skills today?
Yeah, similar to sort of my vision for entrepreneurship, got
Right.
my vision for law. As a young person, I got into trouble in my
Okay.
neighborhood. I got into trouble when my parents refused to get me a lawyer, and so it
Mhm.
was going through the judicial court system without a lawyer that
Yeah.
prompted, motivated me. I think Napoleon said people were motivated by two things: interest and fear. And I
Right.
think I had a heavy dose of both. In the
Right.
sense that I was terrified as a 10-year-old who had gotten in some pretty serious trouble.
Okay.
And so that got me interested in the law. And again, I set out to study law as a young kid and just stayed committed to that vision.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And also, you gave a real interesting TED Talk in 2019 at University of Cincinnati, where you graduated of. It was titled "Doing Shrinks Doubt." Can you please just describe that powerful statement and how you put that statement into use for yourself?
Sure. To follow on to your
Yeah.
earlier question about becoming a lawyer and how that's helped me, I would say that the one of the greatest strength, two great things about the legal education process. One is the sort of analytical skills that it develops if you really lean
Mhm.
into the
Right.
process, and not everyone does. And then the second thing is the sort of grit and determination it takes to not just make it through law school, but to pass the bar. And then if you go off to practice big law, which I did, it takes a lot of grit and determination. And those things are critical to success as an entrepreneur. But in my TED talk, the thesis was doing shrinks doubt. And essentially for me, in whether it's life or business, execution is key. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of people talk and have dreams and visions and talk about things, but ultimately none of that matters. What matters is, can you execute, and will you execute, and will you do what it takes to execute, to bring either that dream about, or that whatever that thing is you want. Are you willing to do what it takes to make it happen?
Mhm.
And in
Fantastic.
doing so, and everyone encounters doubts along the way. It's probably one of the most common things you could experience in life, is to have doubt and fear. It's very common and it's natural. It actually, in some instances, keeps you alive, because you have those emotions. But uh, putting those emotions of fear and doubt in perspective is the key thing I was talking about in my TED talk. Doubt can be large, like an ocean, in which case you can get consumed and carried away from shore, if you will, like if you think about waves in this analogy. Or you can shrink that doubt down to where, yep, it's there, but it has no impact. In fact, I could even drink it and move on. And so that was really the kind of the thesis of my TED talk. Execution and action will reduce your doubt. It's kind of hard to be focused on fear and doubt when you're actually moving.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hey, well, thank you for sharing that. That's a very powerful statement, and I recommend everyone go to your LinkedIn page to be able to see that as well. Can you give us a sense in the number of businesses that you've reviewed, examined? I'm sure there's some you chose to invest. I'm sure maybe more that you chose not to invest. Can you help us evaluate that go, no-go decision as an entrepreneur? What are some things that you look for?
Yeah, at this point of my career, my criteria is pretty focused. Number one, so the most important thing for at this point in my career is purpose. Like, what is the product or service doing?
Mhm.
And so the number one criteria for me is purpose. And the reason that's important is because entrepreneurship is hard. It is extremely difficult. It's more difficult than it's certainly more difficult than me being a lawyer at a top 5 law firm and top corporation. Entrepreneurship is it's very difficult. So if you don't have sort of a purpose or a vision behind what you're doing, it will easily to allow that doubt to come up and carry you away. And so, but the purpose of sort of the venture. And then the second thing I would look at is what's sort of the technology or the innovation and what is that, and sort of how does that fit into a problem set? So whatever problem you think the market has or you're trying to solve, right? How how clear are you on the ability and the capacity of your product or service to sort of solve that problem? And then and does it have an advantage in that regard? And then the third thing that I sort of look at is what is the team factor that is going to go, like, and team is not just internal, like who's working for you, like who do I need who do I need as customers? Who do I need as employees? Who do I need as advisors to make this thing work? I'll give you an example. I think being a franchisee is a great idea, right? To be a McDonald's franchisee or whatever. Like, I don't want to work with a bunch of teenagers, right? Like, and it's nothing, like, I love kids and I mentor a lot of them and I hang out my kid, my nieces, my nephews, but I don't want to work with a bunch of kids. So therefore, that type of business is not something that would be interesting to me. But that doesn't mean it's a bad business, great business. You make a good living and all of those things. So that's when I think about team. Like, I think about who's going to be on my team. So for example, I just recently sold one of my expert network firms. In my expert network firm, all of my employees all of them had to have some honor. And when they graduated, they had to be magna cum laude, summa cum laude, or at least cum laude to get a job with me. Right. So that was a criteria. Everybody had to be sort of, you had to demonstrate some level of academic achievement. And then, so you have a group of very bright people all working together. And then our business itself we were in the business of finding the best and brightest experts around the world. So everybody I dealt with every day was at the top of their game. It were the top scientists, the top software engineers, the top former government officials who were consulting with our clients on various things. And so that was a business that I could sink my teeth into. And I thought about, again, the team, who's on my team, who am I dealing with? And then my clients. My clients were top law firms, top corporations, top, consulting firms. So that's when I talk about team, I think a lot about that. Who am I going to be spending my time with?
Thank you for sharing that. That's a very powerful statement. And for the CEOs who are listening with us today, what can they do to make themselves more attractive in terms of trying to get capital to their business?
So there are a number of things that you can do to make your venture fundable, the first thing I would say is be really, really clear on what it is you're doing with this venture, how this venture is going to make a mark in the industry,
Mhm.
and to be crystal clear on why you are the person that can lead this venture and make it work. And so that's why I just suggest to people to get really clear on why you're doing what you're doing, right? And being clear on that, and then and having again the team that can help you think through the sort of the pitfalls and things like that, and what you need to do to get your product into market. Those things are going to be critical to getting funding. So one of my company, Nanocann Therapeutics, we're working on cancer, and we're working on cancer with an innovation that was developed at Harvard's Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Dana-Farber Cancer Institute is responsible for more approved cancer drugs than any other entity, right? So I already have a little bit of a tailwind to my back in a very risky industry, in the sense that most approved cancer drugs on the market going into humans come from Dana-Farber, sorry. So so that helped me to think through whether or not I would take this on, because I'm not a scientist, right? Therefore, then the next thing is, who's on my team? I work with some of the smartest oncologists in the world. Like, I talk to people every day who, if you Googled who are the top 20 oncologists, I'm on text threads and emails with probably a third of them weekly. And so having like the right team to think through, who's been through clinical trials, who've seen therapeutics succeed or fail, who understand all of the entire scope of workflow that's needed to get the product from the clinic into humans, and all the things that can go wrong and what you need to go well to make that attractive to investors. So those are critical things. And then I think your investors need to know that you're all in, right? The biotech industry is first of all, it's the most challenging investment environment in generations in this industry. So it's very difficult to raise capital, and it is very risky. It's binary, right? And so as an entrepreneur, for me to make this decision, I had to have a way of thinking about why would I do this? I believe that we got funded because we have great technology from a great institution with a great track record. I built a really good and strong team. And then I've demonstrated leadership in the sense that I've built very successful businesses in the past. I've been a part of teams or have led the effort to build successful businesses. And then the final thing, and I think investors want to see this, I got skin in the game. I am the largest investor in my enterprise. We will, before we get to phase 1 trials, we will have a total of about $30 million invested in our enterprise to get to phase 1. A lot of that, fortunately, is non-dilutive government grants, so that takes up a good portion of that. But the rest is capital from investors, and I am the largest investor in this. And then so people know that I'm all in on this. And another thing is, I frame the investment opportunity to my investors in one simple way, and it's the same framework and criteria I use to put in well into the 7 figures of my own money into this venture. And that is, if this product succeeds, what's the best thing that can happen if my product makes it through phase 1, shows efficacy, and is approved? What's the best thing that can happen? If it fails, what is the worst thing that can happen? So the worst thing that's going to happen to me, and then what is the most sort of likely thing to happen, right? And the question I ask myself, am I willing to trade the best thing that can happen for the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen to me, I'm going to lose between capital and opportunity costs. If I had to forego salary, one of my other businesses to do this, I'm going to lose between $7 and $8 million is the worst thing that can happen. And that will be painful if that happens. The best thing that can happen, though, is that my product eradicates the words in cancer diagnosis, there's nothing we can do. When I was a third year associate at Skadden Arps, and I took my dad to a top lung cancer doctor where he had metastatic lung cancer, and the doctor simply walked out and just said, there's nothing we can do. And so those words are what drive me and what motivate me to do my work. And I stay laser focused on that every single day, that if I can wipe out those words for all cancer patients, and let's not say we're going to have a cure, but our product targets metastatic cancer spread. And very few products go after metastatic cancer spread. That is the basis of our innovation, is that we actually have a way of treating a single primary tumor, training the immune system to eradicate metastatic spread. And so the opportunity, again, is worth the bet to me, that if we put this in humans and it's effective, that's the best thing that can happen, eradicating that. Not me becoming a billionaire, not me becoming famous. I don't care about any of those things. But knowing that nobody has to hear those words again is what drives me every day.
Gotcha. Thank you for that powerful statement. And when you mentioned metastatic cancer, is this generic to all cancers, or is it focused on a particular cancer?
I wouldn't say our therapeutic would work on all cancers. We don't have any preclinical evidence of that. What we do have evidence of is that it will work on solid tumors. So if you think pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, liver cancer, breast cancer, we have very compelling data. We've at Harvard, and Johns Hopkins, we've cured animals of all sorts of cancer, of pancreatic, liver, prostate. And in science, you can only get so excited about curing an animal of cancer.
Right.
Most times it's still not going to work in humans. Where we have excitement and where I was willing to take this bet is the animals we cured of cancer, they were also vaccinated. We could not kill them with cancer. We re-injected and reinfected these animals with cancer again, and we had trained their immune system to recognize their individual cancer, and therefore their immune system wiped out the reintroduced cancer cells that we put in animals, and something we've been doing over years. We want to test this in humans, and that was the bet. I'm willing to take this bet. I have all of these top oncologists from around the world, from Mayo Clinic to Oxford to Johns Hopkins to Dana-Farber to University of Pennsylvania to Memorial Sloan Kettering, right? If I have people from all of those cancer centers saying we need to just try this thing out, like, that's a market signal that you might want to try to push this. And so I've worked really hard with a great team and a lot of commitment to try to get this product to market. And we hope to be in human trials next year in 2026.
Hey, well, we wish you best of luck and best wishes with that, because globally, we could all definitely benefit from a therapeutic that can address those serious issues. So thank you for sharing that. And could you just give us a bit of highlight about Reversal Therapeutics?
Yeah, Reversal is a separate company. And so again, and as an entrepreneur, you also need to know focus too, right?
Right.
So I'll say this. I founded Reversal Therapeutics a few years ago. Somehow I've gotten a reputation for top scientists to commercialize assets out of top academic institutions. Mm-hmm. I've done that several times. I've worked with King's College in London. I've worked with, obviously, Harvard on multiple projects. And then I recently licensed an asset out of the University of Maryland and co-founded a company, which I'm not the CEO. I have a CEO who is a serial biotech CEO that's successfully exited 2 biotech companies. That person, that's Dr. Anthony Schwartz, runs that company for me. But I founded the company. I seed funded the asset. Reversal Therapeutic, in short, is this. There's a professor at University of Maryland who probably made one of the biggest breakthroughs in chemistry in the history of chemistry. And that is, there's a class of container molecules. Container molecules gobble up stuff, right? And in this case, they grab harmful elements out of your body. So he basically took the class of container molecules from, there's a class called pillarine molecules. Let's say all of the products in the market now are operating at a crop duster level, right? In aircraft speak. He went to SpaceX.
Yes.
So he made a multi-generational leap from crop duster plane to SpaceX in terms of technology. That was a compelling thing to me. It's objective. It's not like, it's my speculation, or it's like around the world, everybody agrees this is one of the biggest breakthroughs in chemistry. So I took on this project, launched a company. What we're going to do with that container molecule, we have two markets. Number one, it reverses drugs of abuse. If you think about people overdosing on fentanyl or the opioid class of drug, right now you have an intervention called Narcan, and Narcan is very effective. But Narcan is an antagonist. It blocks the drug from getting into your brain. Sequestration molecule, in our case, grabs the drug and removes it from your body. That's a different method of action. Narcan only works on the opioid class. It only works on products like fentanyl. Our compound can reverse fentanyl, cocaine, PCP, oxy, ketamine, mephedrone. It can reverse 10 drugs of abuse. Again, different method of action. Narcan doesn't remove the drug from your body. That's why a lot of people end up dying. They have what's called re-narcotization. And that is the Narcan itself wears off, and the fentanyl, you have so much of it in your system, it re-narcotization and you OD. Right? Our product, because it remains in the body, our product, think about Pac-Man. It grabs the harmful element in your body and then removes it through your kidneys. So the person will urinate the drugs out of their system. So for me, purpose-wise, helping to save lives, right? With this intervention. That's one use. The second use, and the one we're more focused on just because it has even more of a compelling clinical data set, is that the second use of it is when patients go under operations, they get anesthesia. When you get anesthesia, you often need a reversal agent. Right now, there's one reversal, what they call neuromuscular block reversal, and that is taking anesthesia out of your body. I just explained how this drug can remove stuff out of your body, drugs, harmful drugs, but it can also remove anesthesia out. The advantage we believe we'll have in the marketplace there is that right now, the only approved product, Merck has a product that can remove 2 of the 3 forms of anesthesia. Our product can remove all 3 forms of anesthesia. And so that third, there's rocuronium, vecuronium that most people use. There's a product called sesacicurium that is for people that can't have steroid-based products in their body. So that's about 20% of surgery. So you have maybe 100 million doses of this globally, and there's no removal agent. Our product works. It's been clinically proven, and so we'll be in human trials to prove that out clinically. Hopefully soon we're racing towards the clinic with that product as well. So again, for me, product meets my criteria. Innovative product, great team, scientific team, and then very impactful. It'll help save lives if it gets to market.
Fantastic. Hey, well, thank you for sharing that. Both those companies are doing really phenomenal work. And hey, we all need to benefit from the clinical trials. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed, and best wishes that you guys pass the trials here. It's great stuff. Yeah. Could you share, you mentioned a couple of examples here about partnerships and maybe taking bold moves. When you were younger in your career and you were starting out, how did you make that leap? And were there some moves maybe that didn't work out or calculated risks? And what did you learn from those?
Yeah. So I would say in terms of business, in terms of, making either investments in other people or trying things, I certainly had failures, right? And so the key is, I think, to learn like from those failures and why, and get clear on why it failed. It may not be your reason you failed, may not be the obvious thing, but in terms of like bold moves and things like that, I was bold about sort of advocating for my own sort of education and learning. And I was bold about, forming relationships with, I didn't have a box in terms of like who I'm going to be in relationship with. Like, I don't care what your ethnic background, your age, your if I see something where I like you, I want to learn, I think I can learn from you, I would just go for it. So one example is when I was at young associate at Skadden Arps, there was a partner there who was a very good negotiator. I sat in a meeting with him once and I heard him negotiate. So I used to go and take my laptop and sit in his office. And one time he was on the phone negotiating. He was like muted his phone. He was like, "What are you doing in here?" And I said, just go ahead. I'll tell you later. And I just told him, I said, "Look," I said, "sorry I crashed your office. I want to learn how to negotiate like you. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to work from your couch and table just to listen to you. I got my own stuff to do, but you mind?" And so he ended up letting me do that. I learned how to negotiate, but we also developed a great relationship, right? He ended up taking me to his country club to go golfing, and I probed him more, and he ended up going off into business and running a big company. And that's a relationship. And he views me as somebody that he helped to train, right? So you start to build your ecosystem of people who are vested in your career. And I have a number of those stories where, and it's not and you should be authentic too. Like I don't
Right.
put the funk. There are plenty of great, famous people I could have been around. I would never talk to again, right? I met them once and I'm like, I don't want to be around you. You're not there. But the people that I feel that way about, they know I like them and I honor them.
Right.
And so I have a great mentor set in that regard. And they've been, very helpful to my life.
Thank you for sharing that. And as you look at CEOs that are out there now that you see in business and they're trying to scale their companies, what are some of the common mistakes that you see that CEOs make in trying to scale their business?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say common mistake is putting on blinders. It's a little bit of a oxymoronic position or ironic position maybe to be in the sense that to win in business, you have to be like laser focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
On what you're trying to do. But then you also have to be able to see the field.
Right.
And so it's a little bit of cognitive dissonance going on at all time as an entrepreneur. You got to be laser focused on accomplishing that one
Right.
thing, right, that you want to do. But then you also got to be able to take a step back and make sure you don't have on blinders that are your blind spots. I tell people all the time, the reason I go out and I seek other investors right now in my ventures is less about my own inability to fund my ventures and more about two things. Number one, I'm afraid of like arrogance. And I think that arrogance, I think is the death knell of a lot of things. And so I'm afraid of that, right? If I had attitude, I don't need your money. I could just write a check myself and do this. And I've had to do that with my oncology company where we've had shortfalls in funding. I've made the investments, right? But I don't take that attitude that I can just do this on my own. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm terrified of blind spots, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, if you're not worried about blind spots, your chances of succeeding are going to be reduced, I think, in my opinion. My blind spots are covered because I have a vast array of investors with different perspectives and with a broad network. And most of my investors are very successful people, right? Like I have billionaires that have invested in my venture. They might know something about succeeding. So I go to them and I say, "Hey, what am I doing something wrong here? Why do you think we keep hitting this problem? Or what do you think I should do?" And so I'm constantly talking to my investors and I value their input. And so I would say missing your blind spots, and then I'd say arrogance to some extent, that sort of tunnel vision in the sense that nobody can tell you anything. If I meet an entrepreneur and they're not willing to receive constructive feedback, whatever, I'm like, that person is going to fail. I guarantee you that one entrepreneur I had a guy approach me, I don't know, 15 years ago. He came to my office and he's actually he's one of these top chefs, right? But, and he said, "Oh yeah, we have a mutual friend and I'm doing this new restaurant and could you put up the money?" And the amount of money I could have said, "Yeah, I could fund the whole thing myself. That's fine." And I said, "Are you willing to," cause I knew from media reports, I knew this guy had problems with some of his other restaurants. I said, are you willing to take input? Are you willing?" And he said, "No, man, nobody can tell me. I'm the one of the best chefs in the country, blah, blah, blah. I don't need any input on the restaurant business, which is a business that I don't like anyway. I think it's a tough business. And so, but I was willing to take a chance because I knew of this guy's reputation for good food. And I said, so you're telling me that you don't need my help when it comes to running this business, right? And he said, no, I don't need your help with that. I just need your money. I said, then I said, didn't that strike you as curious that you're in my office and I have the money in this checkbook here to give you, and I run a business that enables me to be able to invest in people like you, and you say you don't need what's in my head here to help you. And that doesn't strike you as like curious? He's like, no, well, what I meant was I don't want people interfering or anything like that. And I said, I said, I don't mean this to be harsh, but if you knew so much about this business, why are you in here asking me for money?
Mm.
Businesses, I know why. If somebody asks me that question, I know what I can tell them, right? But I also know that I can write checks alongside all of my investments. And so but that is that sort of that arrogance that like I am the best, which you have to have that. But if you're not coachable or not willing to learn, you're going to be the best who is out of business at some point.
It'd be like someone, hey, this is the best player who didn't make it to the NBA, right?
And we know a lot of those.
Playground
right?
legends, right? But some reason they're not coachable, don't want to work in a team. I want to play when I want to play.
I saw, and that's another, as a kid, I learned
Right.
in my neighborhood, I had a
Right.
kid from my neighborhood who played on the Pan Am team with Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon,
Wow.
Patrick Ewing before the 84 Olympics.
Yep.
Patrick Ewing was on teams with all of those. I saw that guy who was a 6'11" player for top school come back to my neighborhood, and his younger brother, who was only like 16 and he was 22, and the big brother was like 6'11", the younger brother was like 6'6", and the younger brother dominated him.
Mm.
Everybody in our neighborhood watched this. A 16-year-old 6'6" guy dominating a guy who just got off a team with Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, Barkley, all the guys who played on that 1983 Pan Am team got dominated by a 16-year-old. And you don't know that 16-year-old's name. You don't know the brother's name, right? He never made it. The big brother made it. He got drafted by the Sixers and played a few years in the league and has a daughter who's a star in the WNBA right now. But the younger brother, you never heard anything else about him. So I think you have those playground legends in business too. They actually can play, but there's something missing in either the work ethic or the mentoring or the attitude. But I would put largely on attitude and being able to put in the work oftentimes to get a certain level of success.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that powerful story and just the analogy we can all relate to from a sports standpoint. Eric, I wanted, you had mentioned earlier about mentoring. I know that I don't call it giving back, but being engaged in the community and with others is very important to you. I guess, number one, why is that so? And can you give us an example of just some things that you're currently doing and just why that's part of your success, if you will?
Yeah. Again, I don't talk much about my charitable work because for spiritual reasons, I believe that
Understood.
the right hand should know what the left hand is doing. But with that said, there are a couple of public instances of things that I've done. I mean, I made a 7-figure gift years ago to the University of Cincinnati. So that's kind of a public gift and they pushed me to put that out publicly. I'd already been giving for years before they announced this one larger gift. And in part, they thought it would be inspirational to students who grew up like me. And so it's really simple. I felt like when I was a student at the University of Cincinnati and working a full-time job, selling garage doors to pay my way through school, I got help along the way. Like people helped me, just, little things to just help me along the way. And so for me, I always wanted to make sure that I could do that for others, make investments in others. And I look at like how my life has turned out and the impact I have on others. I mean, I don't even know how many students I've helped with scholarships. It's a lot, right? Because it's not just University of Cincinnati. I do stuff in other institutions as well. But But knowing that that was made possible in some small respect because somebody else helped me along the way, right? And sowed into invest in me. So yeah, so I do scholarships very important to me. But I also spend time. I have scholars at University of Cincinnati. I spend time with students at the University of Virginia Law School. I help. I guest lecture an entrepreneurship in the law class at UVA every year. I've been doing that for years. And I probably spend, if I work 70 to 80 hours a week, I spend probably 15 to 20 hours a week on mentorship. The hardcore. I have a group of younger mentees. They're not students. These are 30, 40-year-old business people whose lives I pour into and I mentor, and they're part of my team, if you will, and they opted into my leadership. One of those guys, he's 37 years old. He'll be a billionaire in the next 5-6 years at the pace he's going and the scale of projects we're doing. And I say he's got a group of, I'm an investor in some of his projects, but you know, and so that seeing that payoff, and I always tell him, I tell him, and we talk every day. I tell him, you are God's blessing to me on investing in others. And it has nothing to do with the money. I said, but it's all about his attitude. He doesn't even call me Eric. He calls me Mr. Broyles. We talk every day. We're in business. He refuses to call me by my first name. And he's only, 15 years or so younger than me.
That's a fabulous story. We want to thank you for sharing that example, and we appreciate your spiritual basis, but I think it's important for the audience and as other CEOs that it's not just writing checks. It's, are you spending time with people and investing, kind of that personal relationship? So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Last question we have for you today, Eric, is what's next for you? What's the next hill to climb, and just for the companies?
Yeah. So for me, candidly, I've been in the grind a long time. I had my first entrepreneurial foray when I was 10 years old and cutting grass in my neighborhood in Ohio. And I literally, that was a business I had from 10 to 15. I ended up, as a 10-year-old, I was making $30 a week back when you could buy candy for a penny or 5 cents. Right.
That's right. So
I was rolling. Even as a little
and you
kid,
made your dentist happy, right? Your dentist was happy to see you.
Yeah. And so I've just done a lot of things in life. So my objective now, I have these 2 biotech companies that I'm sort of leading. I want to see if we can get those into patients and those products into patients and see if they work to impact. And so that's my focus, I would say, over the next 3 to 5 years is to get those. After those 2 ventures, I'm scaling back. I'm taking on a different role. I will spend most of my time, I'll do some investing, but I'll spend most of my time on doing boards and mentoring and advising young investors. And that's where I'll spend the rest of, because I don't think I'll ever retire, but I just don't want any day-to-day. If 5 years from now, I don't want any day-to-day responsibilities. Right. So, but I do have a goal in my mind. I have a goal to help, a couple of these young guys I'm mentoring to become billionaires. And one of them, he's well on his way, and he'll reach it in the next 5 to 6 years or so, or if not sooner. And then I have 1 or 2 others that are coming up. And so I'm really, pouring into them and focused on sort of helping them get along. And then, I'll continue to do my support work for students that I help and then the work in my community.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hey, Eric, thank you for joining us today. You've been watching the C Squared Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, Spotify, the cornerstonegroup.us website, and other locations. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and share. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the C Squared Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. And check us out on social media, share, and subscribe.